What's up, guys? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about some big news that came out involving Tesla, what Jerome Powell said that caused the market to dip, and what you should be watching for in the charts moving forward. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $1,000, you're guaranteed 15 in total, not to mention an 8.1% APY on uninvested cash. The offer ends very soon in a little bit over 2 weeks. Anyways, now let's talk about what's happening with the market. So looking at Tesla, we are looking more bearish right now as Tesla has lost the support. We lost our 20 EMA at that 319 area. Then we ended up losing 310 as well. So we have this imbalance to fill all the way down here. And if we can't reclaim at least 319, I think the odds are favoring us coming back down closer to about this 297 to 300 area. This imbalance is going to likely get filled, not to mention the fact that we have this 50 EMA to be watching for. And we'll see if Tesla gets a reaction off that or not. Otherwise, we could be dipping lower. But in this video, I'm mentioning that even if Tesla does see a dip to 300, even if it dips into the 290s, 280s, it does not matter because I believe Tesla will squeeze back up to the 400s. And this is going to be creating a very good buying opportunity all over again. This is not financial advice when I say this, but I'm just trying to say, guys, that this is a good opportunity because I still believe there's so much upside potential for Tesla despite this downturn. And this is just a temporary move. So I want to make that very, very clear. But anyways, I want to talk about the news first, then I'll talk about Jerome Powell and then the charts. So just know this. As far as Tesla goes, there's been a lot of headlines coming out about how the new administration is planning on getting rid of the $7,500 consumer tax credit for EVs. That's something very important, but Elon Musk has mentioned that he doesn't think he's worried about that for Tesla because he has a different view. So Musk is probably thinking that, first off, this is going to hurt Tesla's competitors more because Tesla is not going to depend as much on tax credits. I do agree with him for the longer term because Elon Musk is very forward looking. He thinks years and years into the future because you have to consider the fact that Tesla believes in the robotaxi, they're going all in on it. And with the robotaxi coming out, with Tesla investing so much into it, I do believe it will eventually be a reality. The only question is, how long is it going to take? Will it be a couple of months? Will it take a couple of years? We'll see about that. But the reason I'm saying Tesla's kind of going really heavy on this is because that's what's really fueling Tesla's run. It's not their sales right now. It's mainly just the robotaxi and AI hype and a lot of anticipation about future events. So if the robotaxi is a success, which I believe it eventually will be, I don't know the exact timing, if it's going to take a couple of years or many years, but eventually the robotaxi is going to lead to potentially hundreds of billions, if not trillions in revenue, and that's going to offset all these big tax changes, in my personal opinion. Now, I think that's most likely what Elon Musk is talking about, not to mention the fact that this will have like a bigger effect on their competitors, which are not as developed in terms of robotaxis, right? Tesla's ahead of the game in that sense. So that's kind of like what Elon Musk's view is. I think that for the short term, however, I think that Tesla is more dependent on their sales and the tax incentives changing will affect them for the short term, right? For the long term, I think Tesla will be fine and they will once again offset all of that with new products like Optimus and the list goes on. So that's what my view is. Now, with that being said, with this news coming out with changes to the tax policy and changes to tax incentives, yes, I think this could be a little negative for Tesla and the EV sector just to start things off. In the long term, the EVs are going to be completely fine, but just for the short term, there might be a little disruption in sales or factors like that. So that's the reason why we saw a bit of a dip for the EV sector. This is one of the reasons why. Many people would believe that this is a good trade-off for the deregulations and factors like that, and I could actually see that. So that's just my unbiased view. Other people may have different opinions, and that's also completely understandable. But I still think that the long-term Tesla will be fine. For the short term, this could disrupt them just to some extent if we do see these tax incentives being reduced. So just keep that in mind, guys. That's my view. That's part of why the EVs ended up dipping. I also want to call out this news involving the Cybertruck. We're seeing all over the news. The Cybertruck is getting a massive recall. This is happening again and again. I'm seeing this all over the place, right? We're going to be looking for over 2,400 of the Cybertrucks getting a physical fix, right? That's very important. I know I went over this news yesterday, but I'm seeing this being regurgitated again and again and again. And this is more negative news for Tesla, just keeps on getting screamed by the media. Right, they love to attack Tesla. They love to say negative things about them. So that is what I just want to call out. That's some more negative news that's circulating right now. Jefferies also changed their price target from Tesla to 300 from 195. When this news came out, Tesla also dipped. So this is once again them telling us that it's going to be, it's worth like $300 in their opinion. That's what their price target is, which I find kind of ridiculous considering the fact that we already ran above 300 and now they're saying that. But if anything, not the best of news, I would say, if you kind of consider how late this was. With that being said, we also have volume at about 119 million. That's a little bit above average. We're still selling off on this higher volume. And the short volume is kind of flat right here. On top of this, Wedbush is saying Tesla will outperform the markets. Others right there are giving Tesla pretty good ratings, but the price-price ratio is temporarily dipping. So Tesla is losing strength right now. It's slowing down because of the fact that we are seeing all this negative news that's coming out, and also because Tesla ran almost 50% over the last couple of weeks, right? Even more than that, technically, if you account for earnings. We ran so much, so it is due to come down just a few percentage points, like 5%, 10%. That's completely normal. But I believe there's going to be another run towards the end of the year, and I think Tesla will eventually get to $400 once we start to see a lot more hype come back. We're not there yet, so this is just creating an opportunity. I just want to make that very, very clear. Fridays are known for being green only about 49% of the time, and we tend to see more volatility at 11 o'clock a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And besides that, I'm not seeing anything else that's too crazy in terms of Tesla's data. It's all the same stuff as before. So just to know about Tesla, guys, yes, we're looking a little bit more bearish, so I am anticipating downside as a stronger possibility. Just keep that in mind, guys. I'm trying to be very, very unbiased when I say that. For other factors, now let's talk about Jerome Powell. What's another factor that's causing the market to sell off? As you guys can see, the whole market was red, or at least most stocks out there. Some tech stocks were flat, like Nvda and Microsoft, but then we saw the Googles, the Teslas, the Amazons, retail as a whole, health, and all these different sectors essentially selling off. It actually saw more stocks sell off, if anything, besides a couple of big tech stocks being flat. And the market, for the most part, is in the red. So why is the market selling off like this? Let's talk about what Jerome Powell said. First, let's go over data, and I'll talk about that. So we got the PPI data for today. Everything was technically aligned with expectations except for two things. Core PPI month over month was decent, and the same thing with all items month over month. But then core PPI year over year was at 3.1%. This was above expectations, a little bit hot on that end. PPI for all items year over year was also at 2.4% above expectations somewhat. So PPI, by the way, is the producer price index. This is forward looking for CPI, and this also tends to affect things, at least moving forward. So this more forward looking data is not the best. Jerome Powell was going to be speaking with that coming out. And then also yesterday we got CPI. Notice that CPI was on a downtrend. This is all items CPI for April. We saw it dip. May, June, July, the list goes on. And for the first time in October, we saw all items CPI go up just a little bit. Okay. And then core CPI was kind of flat. This was downtrending for almost the entire year. Now it's starting to just remain flat. Not the best of news. So, as someone that looks at economic data, you don't necessarily just look at one piece of data and think that's it. We have to see what's going to happen over the next couple of months to see if this is sustainable or not, because there's always the possibility that this is just like a little spike before we continue to dip again, a little push before it starts dipping again. So we don't know for sure. But for now, okay, as of right now, things are starting to go up just a little bit. We'll have to wait and see if this goes up higher or not. And that's why the Fed is being very, very cautious. So if you're Jerome Powell, right, he spoke today, you have to take this into consideration, okay? Inflation started to go up a little bit, all right? We can't be too dovish now. We have to wait and see. That's why Jerome Powell changed his tonality. That was a little bit more negative for the markets. Jerome Powell kept saying, let's wait and see what the data gives us. The same kind of like ambiguous talk he always gives us. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. And then he said this. Jerome Powell said that the Fed does not need to be in a hurry to reduce interest rates. That's some big news. That's one of the first times he said that since the times he's been a lot more dovish. So now Powell took a stance where he's like, let's look at the data. Let's wait and see how it goes. Yes, inflation's on track to hit the 2% target, but for now, we're going to look at this on a month-over-month basis. And he started to say that, look, we're not in a hurry to reduce interest rates. We're going to just have to wait and see what the data tells us to do. So when he started taking the stance, the market started selling off because we started to see a big shift in how the market's pricing things in. The odds of us getting a 25 basis point cut is going down. The odds of a zero, basically like a pause, is now starting to go up just a little bit for the month of December. You can actually see the chart right over here. So now there's about a 60% chance we get a 25 basis point cut for December 18th for the FOMC meeting, and a little bit under a 40% chance now that we get a pause, basically. They just keep rates the same. So this might go up a little bit more And then this might go down a little bit to make things 50-50 because the market's a little bit less certain now because of what Jerome Powell said. And that's why the market's selling off. This is what caused the market to turn red. That's what's also affecting Tesla. So just keep that in mind. For earnings, just real quick, we have Disney, which announced earnings today. Then we have Alibaba announcing earnings tomorrow. Disney did relatively well, beating on EPS with $1.14 above expectations. Revenue is at $22.57 billion above expectations as well. And then they raised their guidance. Besides ESPN Plus, they're expecting double-digit growth for the fiscal year. They're also looking at an increase of about $875 million, which is not bad whatsoever. Anyways, that's it for all my data, guys. I know it was a lot to go over, but hopefully you guys understand the gist of it. It's very simple for the most part. Jerome Powell was being more hawkish, which caused the market to dip a little bit. He was very uncertain. And then we got all this bad news for Tesla. That's basically everything in a nutshell. So that's why Tesla's starting to sell off alongside the technicals, which were due for a bit of a dip. So what do I see for Tesla moving forward? I gave you guys these levels in my morning video. So here's how it's going to go. Tesla has resistance to watch for at this 308 area, then 312. If we get back above 312, we have potentially get closer to about this like 317, 318 area. We need to reclaim at least 319-ish to turn back up. So that's like your more bullish case. You go back above 319, at least like 315. If we're bearish, you want to see Tesla fail to hold 307. And if it does not hold it, I think we easily go down to 300 to 297 to fill this imbalance. That's the most likely case in my opinion. So what do I think Tesla is going to do? What is my prediction for tomorrow? You guys know the levels, but here's what I think. Tesla is on a bit of a downtrend because of technical analysis and all these pieces of data and also Jerome Powell. I think that this imbalance down here is going to attract a slower, not to mention the 50 EMA on the 4-hour time frame. I think that Tesla is going to be kind of like starting off with some shop, then eventually making its way down to about 297 to 300. That's going to be our first target. If we bounce off this, because this is going to be a main support after we saw so much downside, so it could attempt to rebound off 297 to push back into the 300s. Or if we fail to hold 297, if we actually lose that, I think we could be dipping all the way down to like 288 and then, all the way into the 280s. So be very, very mindful of that, guys. We'll have to watch this very, very key support at 297 to 300. But I presume the most likely possibility is Tesla will be dipping all the way down closer to about 300. So keep that in mind, guys. I see some downside for Tesla stock. How about for SPY? I think the same thing is essentially happening. I think there's a very, very good chance that SPY is going to be looking for a very, very similar move. SPY is looking more bearish. Now, look at resistance at 595. If we reclaim that, we could turn back up for 598. If we fail to reclaim that, the odds are favoring that gap fill all the way down towards 591. So SPY on the daily chart has this very, very important gap right over here at 591. That's where our first support is. If that fails us, we go all the way down to 590, close to the 4-hour 50 EMA. So 590 to 591 is a very important support zone, which is where the gap fill is, not to mention the 4-hour 50 EMA. And we will be watching to see if we bounce off this or not. If we don't hold 590, which is critical support going into tomorrow at the 50 EMA, if we don't hold it, I think we get a rug pull all the way down to 585 or so, which is where we have this previous resistance becoming support. So basically tomorrow, look for a little pop upon open, maybe a little bit of liquidity could be grabbed, then a dip all the way down to 591 to 590, and we'll see if we bounce off that or not. Might be a small dip because of Jerome Powell and these other factors, and then we'll see if we get a bounce or not. For other factors out there, we also have ES. ES is on a bit of a downtrend right over here. We're looking at 59.68 as our main area. If we hold this, we could attempt to rebound. If not, we could be on our way all the way down towards 59.50 or even below that. So I think this is favoring a move all the way down to 59.50. And if that does not hold, we could be on our way down to about 59.10 flat, which is where we have this previous resistance becoming support. I think the odds are favoring the mid of 59.50 area than even below that. So we do look like we might see a little bit more downside on ES before we try to bounce. So keep that in mind. For Nvda, I'm seeing something very similar developing. So if you look at Nvidia, we like to be range bound right here, but this chart is favoring downside a bit more. I think that we have an imbalance to fill. We need to try to hold above 146.5. Otherwise, the odds are favoring us coming down to 144 to 145. So look for 144 to 145. We'll see if we bounce off that or not. Otherwise, we are favoring downside all the way down there. If it does not bounce there, we could continue to dip closer to about we're going to dip closer to this level right here. So there's 144, then eventually 140, 142-ish, previous resistance becoming support. I think the odds favor a little bit of downside to 144 to 145, and we'll see if we bounce or not. So keep that in mind. If we break past 148, we could turn back up, but I don't favor that. I think the odds favor 144 to 145. For Bitcoin, I think that this is looking a little bit more bearish. We have to see if we hold 87,750. Otherwise, we might be dipping to the lower end of this range, taking us down to about the 86,500 area. Might be a small dip before we see some bounces. Let's look for some downside before that, and we'll see how things end up going. For other factors out there, we have NQ. It's looking bearish, guys. Unfortunately, we got this rug pull. Thank you so much, Jerome Powell. We need to reclaim 21,000. Otherwise, this could continue to dip down towards this imbalance. 20,870 is our first target, followed by this previous resistance becoming support at 20,800. So we could be on our way down to the lower 20,900s before it starts dipping lower. So look for a little bit more downside, and we'll see if we bounce off that area. For the QQQ, I'm seeing something very similar. And by the way, we have 21,000 as our resistance. For the QQQ, we have essentially 510 as our resistance, and our support's at 505. I think the chart is favoring 505, and then we also have a gap to fill below. And then if 505 fills us, we have previous resistance becoming support at 502-ish. So I think 505, 502, and 500 are our supports. We should be testing at least 505 or below for a little bit more downside as the most likely possibility. So keep that in mind. For others out there, we have Apple stock. Apple basically has like this tough resistance around 228. If we hold above that, we're looking for 230. Otherwise, it could be dipping all the way down towards 226. I think the odds favor 225 to 226 before it tries to bounce. So look for a little bit more downside, and we'll see how things go from there. Just keep that in mind, guys. For other factors, I just want to call out the fact that we also have NEO. So I was talking about NEO in my previous videos, right? I deserve credit for that because I called out the head and shoulders on this, which panned out almost perfectly, especially after we lost $5. This is going to likely continue to fall. It might be affected by Alibaba's earnings, but there is a risk of it getting to the lower fours, so just keep that in mind. For Netflix stock, this is bullish, except tomorrow we have the very, very big live stream for the boxing match between Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. It's going to be huge. Just know this, that we could try to push a little higher, and we'll see how it reacts to 840. So give this a little bit of time to develop. If we get that rejection off 840, it could start dipping back down to 825. It is due to pull back soon. This could be kind of like a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Once we have the boxing event, this might start turning. So we'll see about that. So give this some time. Might push a little bit more, and we'll see if it rejects off 840. Celsius is also sort of starting to reject off its 20 EMA. If we're rejecting off the 20 EMA, we could be tipping back down towards 26.5, so keep that in mind. For other factors out there, we have Supermicro. This is on a bit of a downtrend as well. We could be on our way back down towards the 16.5 area. We need to reclaim 21 to turn back up. Otherwise, we favor the downside move. Palantir is trading sideways within a range between 60 and 62. So I think the odds favor, I'm sorry, not 60, 58.9 and 62 is the range. We're going to likely just trade sideways, look for a little push tomorrow morning because of some bullish news, and then dip back down. And I just think it trades sideways for now until we see which way it breaks. Break 62.5, I turn bullish, and lose 58.9, I turn more bearish. I think we're just going to trade sideways for now until we see which way it goes, but there might be a small dip back down to 58. A pop and then a dip back down to the 58 area is very probable. For Rivian, this is rejecting right over here. Looks a little bit more bearish. We could be on our way back down to the low 10s before it tries to bounce. So look for a little bit more downside as the most likely case. I find that to be very probable. For SoFi, we're looking at support at 13.29. If that fails us, I think the odds are favoring 13 flat or even below that. So we'll see if it bounces or not, but just keep that in mind. There is that risk of downside. The IWM has a very, very nice setup. It has this big gap to fill, so it is looking more bearish. Look for confirmation. If we lose 231.72, if we fail to hold that, I think we come down to fill that gap. If we hold this, we could attempt to rebound, but I think the odds are favoring that gap fill all the way back down towards those levels. For AMD to me is looking a little bit weaker. Why do I say that? We have the very, very nice looking head and shoulders right here. We need to reclaim 142. Otherwise, I think the odds are favoring it just continuing to fall. 138 and 135 are going to be our targets, followed by the lower 130s. So the odds favor the downside move. For ARM is on a bit of a downtrend here. We'll have to see if we reclaim 139. Otherwise, this could be dipping back down for 133. So look for 135 and 133 as our supports, and we'll see how it reacts. For Coinbase, we look a little bit more bearish with Bitcoin kind of selling off. So I think it might be coming back down to not only fill the gap towards 270, but we could be looking for essentially 262. So I do think there's more downside potential, so give this the time it needs. For Amazon, in my personal opinion, could be dipping back down lower. So we're looking for basically 209.64, and we'll see if it bounces off this or not. But I think the chart's favoring a little bit more downside as a stronger possibility. So watch for a test of 209. Let's see if we bounce. If not, we are going to be dipping to 207. Meta, on the other hand, is also a little bit weaker. We got to reclaim 579. Otherwise, it's at risk of coming down to about 573. So I think this imbalance could attract us down to 573, then 572.5 is our support zone. We'll see how it reacts to that, but look for a little bit more downside before we get some kind of like big reaction. For Microsoft, we're trading flat right now. We could be dipping lower back down towards 423. We'll see if we bounce off it or not. But I think the odds favor 423 is a big test, and we'll see what kind of reaction we get. So I think this is favoring downside, so look for a test of 423. For Google's also dipping right over here. So we're looking at 177 as our main support area. If it rejects here and does not hold above that, we could be dipping back down for 175. If we hold above this, we could attempt to rebound. So I think the odds are favoring downside for 175, and we'll see how things end up going. For GameStop's on a very, very nice uptrend here. As long as we don't lose 26.09, I think the favor 26.09. I think the odds favor 29 plus. So it's showing some signs of potential. AMC is very choppy, not that fun to play. It might actually retest 4.5 before it tries to bounce, but it's not that strong, guys. Very flat. For those who are interested in DJT, it looks a little bit more bearish to me. I think 25 is coming before it tries to rebound, so watch for that level very, very closely. And three more, we have the VIX. The VIX is still trying to hold the 14s. That is where we have critical support. If it holds that, we could be on our way back up to 14.9 for a temporary bounce because the market may sell off just a bit. For the 10-year, it could push for about 4.45, which tends to be a little bit more bearish. And the dollar is more bullish, which tends to be bearish as well. But, it hasn't been affecting the market as much, so I'm not really as dependent on the dollar anymore, at least for this cycle. For now, the dollar is bullish, which tends to be another confluence for the market trying to sell off. So we'll see how it goes. All right, guys. So for Tesla, we're going to likely sell off for the short term. I think we could be approaching 300 now after Jerome Powell's speech and these other factors panned out. However, that does not mean I'm a perma bear, because even if we lose 300, we'll have to see if 297 to 300 holds. If it does not hold and we start dipping for like 288, 270, I don't even care, guys, because I think Tesla will rebound. I think there's going to be a strong rebound towards the end of the year. And I think we're going to be retesting 400 eventually for either the end of this year, if not by early next year. So this is a buying opportunity, non-financial advice. The opportunity is coming. Not saying that this is the ultimate bottom, but I'm just trying to give you guys at least some insights about what I think is going to pan out. So I thank you all so much for listening. Have a great night. Have a good day wherever you guys are around the world. And I'll see you guys very soon tomorrow to break down the charts. Thank you for listening, and peace out.